Thank you very much for joining us. This is a webinar today based on the UK market and where we're seeing things moving forward. I'm Elliot Rowe, and I'm joined here by Donna Spencer, who's CEO of the International Property Finance Group. Initially, I'm going to talk about what's happened in the UK market to date, and so far in 2024, and how that market has evolved and where we're sat, and also how we see things moving forward, not necessarily just for the end of the year, but actually moving on over probably the next 4 years or so. Donna, who obviously is the mortgage specialist and has a team who specialise in assisting overseas buyers get mortgages, will be able to give you a very in-depth, up-to-date knowledge and update on the mortgage market, and we'll do that as sort of further on in the presentation. And I will also be using an example of a sort of project or an area within the UK where we think we're going to see probably the best investment case going forward, which is actually the Northwest in Manchester. Just a quick note for the people that are new to the RPA group. We are based and headquartered in Dubai in the Middle East, and essentially we help and assist overseas buyers buy UK investment property. We do that with great fantastic partners like Donna at IPFG, and aim to give you a full end-to-end service, as you can see here, right from the research start to the research from our perspective on the projects and due diligence, ensure there's the right developer, funding, right investment case, all the way through to essentially the lettings and property management side of things. And today we're mainly going to be looking at the two middle parts, which is sort of the investment advice really, and the mortgage services. Okay, so what has basically happened in the UK and the property market over sort of the last 18 to 24 months is that so 2023 was actually probably quite a tricky year. We saw interest rates go incredibly high. Inflation was moving quite rapidly upwards, and so that had a considerable effect on the housing market sort of in 2023 and sort of early part of 2024. But as 2024 has moved on, and we've started to see things like the inflation dropping, we sort of see interest rates follow sort of in line, the housing market itself has started to improve quite significantly. So and what that means is we're sort of looking at sort of a year-on-year 2.2% average property house price rise. You've probably seen the highest percentage of that in the Northwest at 4.1%, and then your rental growth is actually going up 5.8% across the UK on year, and ultimately a significant factor behind that is the way that the mortgage market has reacted and acting, and how that enables purchasers, investors, or end users alike to access the market. What's really important here is that at the start of 2024, a lot of predictions were that house prices would either plateau or probably drop off a couple of percent. And actually, the housing market has gone the other way. The UK housing market has gone the other way. So again, it just showing the market's resilience and how it is able to perform even in trickier economic conditions. We've actually seen an average house price growth. We're seeing rental price growth, and so it all looking particularly sort of positive, and a lot more positive than we expected it in January at the beginning of the year. So which is obviously all good. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, I'm going to specifically focus on an area in the UK in the northwest called Manchester, which was literally in a report last week, was the highest ranking city in the UK for residential investment. So probably an ideal city to look at and to work on from there. And once I've gone through that, Donna will then actually go through the mortgage perspectives as well, and you can see how it works from a leverage side of things. This is just giving you where we're seeing the whole market now moving forward. So as I mentioned, January 24, the sort of predictions were not as positive as they turned out, and now actually some sort of major some of the major real estate businesses in the country and the world, like Savills and JLL, have completely revised their predictions for the UK over the next 4 to 5 years. So by 2028, looking at that, UK house prices going up by about just under 18%. Northwest looking the most positive at 28, West Midlands 23, and London around sort of 14%. Rents equally in the same period of time, looking at a 22% increase. So all these things are positive. It makes for a good investment case, and I think a major factor for this is the supply and demand in the UK. So, and this is why it shows its resilience. So the UK is somewhere around 300,000 units a year that need to be built. We're way under that, sort of averaging around 100,000 over the last 4 years. And it's the lowest level of house building we've had since World War II. So it really, that supply and demand is going to take a very long time to sort of equal out, which will continue to strengthen the market and make a property the right investment for you. So specifically looking at Manchester and why we like it, and obviously not just us, why the reports coming out saying it's the largest or most popular place or best place to invest from a residential investment perspective. So you can see here sort of population growth, got a large number of students, including international students, so within 5 universities. Rental yield is extremely strong in comparison to sort of the rest of the UK, really. And then its economic position it is very, very good. Highest economic growth in the UK over the sort of short term. More FTSE 100 companies are moving there. Fastest growing number of jobs. Again, all looking positive. You can see why this is an investment. It is a good area that people like to want to live and work. Maybe they've gone to university and they're staying where they may have left previously, and there's that graduate retention rate, and all the other sort of other factors with the businesses and everything being based there. Again, I've touched on this earlier, just in terms of the housing market itself, but you're looking at 28.8% increase by 2028, and you're looking at that significant rental increase as well of around 21%. Going back to it, shortage of homes, 170, and this is the same rhetoric throughout whenever you're looking at this as an investment case, but it's the same rhetoric. 170,000 new homes are needed by 2038. The sort of, I think, best example of Manchester and the vision that we've got that is there in terms of the investment and that sort of things is a project that we have called Kingfisher, which is based in an area called Victoria North Manchester. It's by a developer called FEC, Far East Consortium Group, and it's a joint venture with FEC and Manchester City Council. It's the largest redevelopment area within Northern Europe, with over £1 billion worth of total investment. It's a full new community, which is on the edge of the city centre. So essentially, for a lot of it, walking distance into the city centre, and will create jobs, it'll create living space, it'll be schools, it'll be communities, and everything that you would need, but in a city centre location. Again, this is just sort of reinforcing that 15,000 new homes against 155 exits. Now, this is over a 12-year build process. So, and we're starting at sort of the closest end, which is this red bank down here, closest to Manchester Victoria train station and Manchester city centre. And the other areas will move out into different types of property, whether it be terraced housing or smaller housing communities. To the larger sort of investment blocks maybe that we're looking at here. What you're seeing, and with the economic change that's within Manchester, is that the quality of the products being produced are now so much higher. So this is, arguably the sort of finish and quality of product that you may have previously only found in central London in the UK. It wouldn't have been something that, say, maybe in Manchester or in other regions within the UK, but that is now changing because essentially the wealth is being shared and split around the country. So high quality apartments with high quality finishing, bathrooms, kitchens, floor to wall windows, architecturally very considered, so ensuring they got rights to light and nice views and park and things like that. And essentially this is how the project breaks down in terms of what it is. So I mentioned it's a developer Far East Consortium. It's over 30 floors, 322 apartments. Especially off here, but one bed starting from around 280,000 and two beds from 375. The amenities is probably one of the biggest selling points with it. So within the project itself, you'll have a residence clubhouse that will ensure that will have bar, restaurant, dining facilities, gym, co-working space, yoga lounges, residence lounge, and sort of everything and anything in between. But again, it's that sort of next step up in quality, which the general population in Manchester is probably demanding more than it had historically, and that's what also where we can see that growth and that potential. Is the fact that you're building something that the research has been done. We know that the demand is there. Quite interesting with this project is that it is completing in 2028, and as I just mentioned, you're looking at house price growth between now and 2028 of around 28%. With this particular project, you pay a reservation fee of £2,000, 10% now as the exchange amount. So you would exchange on the property, say this year in 2024, and then in 12 months time or 13 months time, once you've exchanged, you would pay a further 10%, and then the rest would be on completion. I'll let Donna obviously explain about how the mortgage situation would work in this particular instance, but roughly speaking, let's say you put 10% down now, 10% down in 2024, you'd probably be looking at putting down an additional 10 to 15% in 2028. And obviously, what the prime element with this is, we'd be seeing that nice house price growth. You buy at X price today, it's worth just shy of 30% more by the time it completes. We also, because of Manchester being the popular hub it is, we have two other projects in Manchester, which are slightly different in terms of location and things like this. One, Victoria, which is literally next to Manchester Victoria train station. The minute you look, you can see it sort of from the windows. But it's also next to Manchester Arena, so it's a very city centre located project. This is completing a little bit earlier for those that want something that completes sooner, which will be in Q1 2025, so early next year. And you're looking at one bed apartments in there from 277, two beds from 342. So it's a very similar price point to Kingfisher, but for those that want to return on their investment sooner, it is available very soon. Available early next year, and payment terms are similar, but it's finishing sooner. So 10% now, and then 90% would be on completion. So essentially, in this instance, if you were looking at a mortgage, you put 10% down now, and somewhere between a 25 and 30%, as 15 and 20% additional amount in Q4 2025. And then we have another project, which is actually the only project outside of the FEC, Forest Consortium developer belt, if you like, of Victoria North. This project is called Osborne Yard, and this completes in Q2 next year. So again, if you're looking for something that's finishing a bit sooner, this is an opportunity. There is an opportunity here. This project appeals more to the middle market, and what I mean by that is it doesn't have the high level of amenities, and maybe the sort of higher service charges and things like that you may find with other projects that are that much higher end within Manchester. So you're looking at one bedroom apartments from 200,000 and two bedroom apartments at 285,000, and there are 7 townhouses which are a fantastic opportunity that start at around 400,000. As I mentioned, completion Q2 next year, early next year, and so recently we just had a discussion with the developer, and to keep them in line with the other 2 projects in Manchester, we are able to do payment terms of 10% now and 90% on completion of Q2 next year, which, as I mentioned earlier, works out as sort of 10% now and circa 20 to 25% for early next year. Now, essentially, I've sort of given you a bit of, hopefully, some insight into where we see the housing market, where it's been, where it's going, and sort of moving forward over the next 4 or 5 years, and then some really quite specific sort of project details about within Manchester itself. So now I'd like to pass over to Donna, as I've probably talked enough and I was bored of my voice, and she'll be able to talk you through IPFG themselves, and also sort of products on the market and the current state of play in the mortgage market. Over to you, Donna.
Thank you, Elliot. Lovely to see you today. A lot of people refer to us as IPFG. Our full name is International Property Finance Group. We're a small family-run business, and we specialise in international lending. Now, predominantly what we do is UK lending. We do work in other markets as well. I myself am an expat, so I understand exactly how frustrating it can be for a foreign investor or an expat to try to obtain lending in a country that you're not necessarily in, and we're here to support that. Our sister company, International Property Finance Limited, is actually based in the UK. That is directly authorised under the FCA, and we're not part of a network. We can go to the banks directly, so that we build the good relationships with those banks, so that we can obviously work on your behalf with those lenders. And we also have access to different mortgage clubs, which gives us access to various different lenders. So if we were looking at a lending space, with all the lenders that we have access to, you're looking at way over 200. You do have to filter in different elements of lenders' criteria, and that sort of whittles it down, but I'll take you through that in a moment. So our mission is basically to listen to our clients and understand their needs. One of the most frustrating things I know as an expat was if you get somebody based in the UK and they'll revert everything back to the UK. So they'll say, can you make a meeting at 2:00? Or which time zone? So it's understanding the clients, those little things that can make things frustrating. And I'm sure you're all sort of smiling to yourselves, because we all know, as an expat or foreign investors, when you're dealing with another country, sometimes you tend to people tend to relate to it just being in that country, but we do understand that our clients sit all around the world. Good, excellent service is what we pride ourselves on. So it's making sure that you're getting good advice and good, honest advice. Sometimes what you want and how it sits in the market might not necessarily be the same thing. So it's about giving that good advice, what's right with your circumstances and how the lenders will view that, and making sure that we're giving you the best advice and which lenders to go with. And that service. Now, I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. And I'd like to say that many of my clients are now no longer clients. I would say that they're friends. And that's what it's about. It's about building that long-term relationship. We're not a huge company and we're never going to be. So it's about having that building and working together to what your needs are from a lending perspective. And that's really, really key to us. And then making sure that the processes run smoothly. So our advisors will give you the advice, the recommendation about where to go for the lending, and then we have our operations that will take that application from agreement in principle all the way through to getting the mortgage offer out, and then they'll follow up with your solicitor on a weekly basis to make sure that that process is being followed through. So that's who we are and that's what we do. If you take me to the next slide, please. So lending options. So there's been, and I'm sure you've all just seen recently, we've had the rates reduced. But with lending options for foreign investors and expats, it hasn't drastically changed in the last 15 years that I've been dealing in this market, the expat foreign investor market. And that's that lending will be anywhere up to 75. Now, in some instances, there are lenders that will offer up to 90% for the foreign investors. Well, what I never want to do is overpromise and underdeliver, because there's many different factors when it comes to lending about what can and can't be done. And things that will be taken into consideration will be things like income source. So where is your income coming from? What currency is it being paid into? Is it that you've got a company abroad? Do you get paid dividends? All of those things need to be considered when you're looking at lending. Okay, then you'd have the building itself. So how many stories in a building? That's really key, because a lot of lenders will only go up to a certain amount. Some will look at what the commercial is underneath. And it's our expertise that obviously guides that client through that process. And we work very closely with RPA to look at the projects that they're delivering. And before they go to market, then to explain, to go through the due diligence with the lenders and then present to RPA the lenders that will be happy to lend on their buildings. So before those projects even come to market, we've had a level of due diligence that's been done on those projects so that we already know who is going to lend. Location is another key aspect. So if a property is in close proximity to, let's say, a train station, or I don't know, it could be many different things, a pylon. Some lenders will say, yeah, no problem. And then some lenders might say no. So it's about making sure that the lenders that you're going to completely understand the project, where it's located, how many stories, taking into consideration your income. And then we get right down to the nitty-gritty, which is the rental achievement. So again, each lender will have a calculation that sits in the background, which they'll look at the rental achievement, and then they'll work out a calculation of what you can then borrow. So it might not even be based on your income. There might be a level of basic income that needs to be earned, but the actual lender will be calculating on what the rental achievement will be. So I would always say that if you're going to buy a new build property, allow for, obviously I've mentioned up there that you've got up to 75% loan to values, and I did touch on it. In some instances, there's more than that. However, to safeguard yourself in any changing market, I would always say allow to have a deposit of anywhere between 30 to 35, just in case any untoward. We don't know what markets do. Last year was a prime example. We had quite a turbulent year on lending. I would actually go as far to say that was probably one of the more challenging markets in lending. Last year definitely was up there with 2008. As quick as you were picking a product, it was disappearing. So I would definitely say it was up there with the 2008s and the challenges that brought. And you know, if you're going to do an investment, this is one of the only investments that you can actually leverage against. So just make sure that you're not shoehorning yourself into an investment. Make sure that you've really thought about it and that you've got that extra deposit just in case. If you don't need it, wonderful, but if you did need it, at least it's there. And that would be my best piece of advice to any investor that's out there. And we can arrange finances on an individual basis, or on a limited company, or a trust, or a special structures. So please feel free to reach out, and we can then advise what's based on your needs. You do find with some products they will become a minimum loan size. There are lenders that will lend as minimum as 30,000, but obviously you don't have huge amounts of choices. And for a typical loan for an expat, for an investor, you're really looking at a minimum loan of about 100 grand. And even then, some lenders are not in that ballpark figure anymore. So we can advise on that when we speak to you and tell you which is best for you. Can we go to the next slide, please, Elliot? Thank you. So what's been happening? What's been happening in the mortgage world? Okay, so beginning of the year was we were all anticipating change, and then obviously this month we've just received the first of which we believe to be a bit of a trend moving forward of the rate reduction with the Bank of England. So we're now down to 5% in the Bank of England. What's been happening with swap rates is what the lenders borrow their money from. Okay, so if we looked at this time last year to now, the typical 5-year fixed rate, which the banks borrow their money at, was 1.3% more today than it was than it is today. So last year, 1.3% more than it is today on a 5-year fixed product, which is huge telltale signs. Okay, so I would say we're expecting to see rates change, and that's coming down for the better. And what with the predictions that Elliot was mentioning earlier about the demand for properties and the increase in rental achievements, that's only going to be better for the investor. Depending on the demographics of the client, depends on the interest rates that are available. So that we would show to you once we understand your full circumstances, but it is important to understand that there are rates now. And in some instances, I've worked on a case, and I don't often, as you know, Elliot, I don't always get close to the detail when working on individual cases, but I've been doing that over the summer months, purely because there's so much holiday this time of year, right? So, and I've had a few old clients ask me to look at restructuring their loans. So there are products as low as sort of 4.69, and that is for the British expat. But I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So just erring on the side of cautious, as you know I always do. I would say you typically budget for anywhere between sort of 5.5% and 9.5, and the reason that 9.5 on there, which probably everybody goes, is if somebody was sat in an unusual location, or their income was derived from an unusual source, and that be.
And obviously, Donna, that is in a worst case scenario, that 9.5% for an international buyer.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, many different factors. Hence the rate. The other thing that we've seen that's been a huge change is the arrangement fee for the products. So what you might see is a really headline rate, but you need to be checking on the arrangement fees for that product. So in some instances, the arrangement fee for a typical buy-to-let product can be as high as 10%. So it's really key that you're looking at the products and all of the fees that come with that product, and that's quite a big change that we've seen in the market over the last definitely 18 months. So I would say just keep an eye on that. And these small short-term fixed rates need to be looked at. What your long-term plan is and what the product does for you needs to be considered. Okay, good.
Next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So typical documents, it's no different to the UK. last 3 months pay slips, or 2 years tax returns, bank statements that reflect your income that's coming in. If there's transactions that we can see that have not been mentioned, then we're going to ask that before we present it to the lender. One of the key things when you're doing a mortgage application is how you present that to the lender. What you don't want to do is you don't want to keep going back and forth asking the question. So things like sending a PDF instead of a screenshot. The bank's not going to accept a screenshot. Send the PDF. Those little things are great tips to someone when they're doing a mortgage application. This is a bank you're dealing with. You can't sort of get your phone and sort of half shot something and expect a bank to take that. So PDF. Making sure that the bank statement reflects on what your earnings are. Any outgoings on your bank statements that you haven't declared, we're going to see that. So we want to know if you say, oh yeah, I haven't got a credit card, you have got a credit card, you might clear it every month. That's okay, but we just need to understand that. There's no point putting on an application you haven't got a credit card when you can quite clearly see that that's being paid on the bank statements. Proof of residential address. Sometimes can become a bit tricky for somebody in the Middle East if they're on their husband's or their partner's visa and they haven't got proof of address. We have got tips that we can help them how to get around that. We're doing this for many years, so no problem. Ask the question. Tenancy agreements, if you rent out property that you live in, or if you've got other properties that you rent out, we'd like to see those if that's making part of your income. And then if you're doing a remortgage or if you've got other mortgages in the background, we want to see your mortgage statements, latest mortgage statements, latest tenancy agreements. Those things are going to be important to see. And in some instances, they're going to want to see the credit report of the country that you live in. So bear that in mind. And if you're not sure where to go for that, we normally have a link that we'll be able to give to you that you can then go on and do that. So don't worry about that. We've got your back.
Fantastic. And I think that sort of brings us to the end of sort of the main sort of discussion points that we wanted to sort of get across to you all today. So thank you very much, Donna. That was incredibly insightful and really helpful. And I think the key thing here to remember is what both our two companies do, RPA and IPFT, International Property Finance Group. What we both do is we are here to assist anyone based overseas purchase UK property and try and make that process and that experience as smooth as possible, because there are hurdles that need to be jumped, and we are very much here to try and help work through everything that needs to be done to ultimately give you the best chance of making a really good investment in the UK.
Absolutely. So, and if anyone does have any questions, by all means, let us know. We're more than happy to jump on it. Both companies have got many years of experience. Not to say that we know it all, and no question is a silly question. So please feel free to just ask any question. We're more than happy to support you to make the decisions that's right for you.
Exactly, and I can see there are a number of questions that have come in today, which we'd like to thank you for, but we don't want to answer these now because I feel like we've probably got on a little bit and you've probably got very busy days. So one of the team from either company will be getting in touch with you very shortly, and we'll be able to either answer those questions in a call or arrange a meeting with either the mortgage consultant or sales consultant in either business, or maybe both, hopefully both, and be able to help move that, answer your questions, and move your decision process forward. Look, I put some sort of key conclusion points up here, which ultimately are sort of important in any type of market. We've discussed, we're very specifically looking at where we are today, but these key fundamentals will be the reason and the sort of the driving force to why any of you should be making these investment decisions and purchasing in investing in UK property. As Donna just mentioned, we've got teams in both businesses with vast experience who are in my opinion, sort of in a very good position and place to be able to answer any questions you may have. As I said, no question is ever too stupid. But we're happy to answer everything and anything. So on that note, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us today, and really appreciate your time. I hope you find it insightful, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Stay, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.